All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're putting two of the biggest AI strategies head to head, long context versus RAG. If you're building anything with AI, you've probably wrestled with this. Our goal here is to give you a super clear way to figure out which one is the right move for your project. Okay, let's start with an idea that kind of cuts through all the hype. It's this: more context isn't always better. Now, that might feel a little weird, right? You'd think that just dumping more and more information on a model would have to make it smarter. But as we're about to see, it's really not that simple.
So, first up, let's talk about the big one, the one getting all the attention, the long context promise. On the surface, it sounds like the ultimate solution, this incredibly powerful idea.
So what exactly is a long context model? Well, at its heart, it's an AI that's built to basically swallow a massive amount of text. We're talking hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of words, all in one single go. The idea is pretty straightforward. You hand the AI the entire textbook, the whole giant document, and you just ask it to find the answer that's buried somewhere inside.
That sounds amazing, I know. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? The promise of long context comes with some pretty significant, often hidden complexities. Things get tricky under the hood.
See, to pull this off, these models are doing some serious technical gymnastics. They're using things like positioning codings just to keep track of which word came first, and sliding windows to process all that data in chunks. And then they have to try and stitch all those pieces back together into a coherent answer. Every single one of those steps is a place where errors or inefficiencies can creep in. And all that complexity leads to one of the biggest challenges, something called the lost in the middle problem. It's fascinating, really. Research has shown that when you give a model a gigantic document, it acts a lot like us. It pays really close attention to the beginning and the end. But all those critical details buried deep in the middle, they can get completely ignored. It's like trying to find one specific sentence in a book that's 1,000 pages long. Okay, so if just jamming everything into the context window has these pretty serious flaws, what's the alternative? What's a builder supposed to do when you need reliable, accurate answers from a huge base of knowledge? Well, this is where RAG comes into the picture. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and it's a totally different and frankly smarter way of thinking about the problem. Instead of forcing the model to read the entire library, RAG acts like a super fast research assistant. First, a retrieval system goes out and finds only the most relevant pieces of information. Then, it hands just that targeted info to the model to generate an answer. The analogy's perfect. It's like an open book exam, but you have a genius friend pointing you to the exact paragraph you need. And the process itself is just beautiful in its simplicity. It's this little three-step dance. First, you retrieve the relevant chunks of text. Second, you augment the user's original question with that context you just found. And third, you let the model generate an answer, but based only on that focused information. It is so efficient and incredibly effective.
All right, showdown time. Let's put these two approaches right next to each other and see how they really stack up. This is where it gets super practical for you, especially when you're trying to decide what to build with.
When you look at performance, RAG often comes out on top. Because of that lost in the middle problem, the accuracy of long context can really take a hit. RAG's targeted, surgical approach is just way more precise. And then there's the cost. Let's be real, processing millions of tokens is expensive. RAG is almost always going to be easier on your wallet because it's only working with a small, relevant slice of the data. So that brings us to use cases. It's all about the right tool for the right job. Long context is at its best when you're analyzing just a few, very large self-contained documents. Think about dissecting every single clause in a massive legal contract. RAG, on the other hand, is built for breadth. It's perfect for something like a Q&A system that has to search across a huge collection of different documents, like a customer support chatbot pulling answers from thousands of help articles. That is RAG's playground. But here's where it gets really exciting. This doesn't have to be an either-or choice. What if you could actually get the best of both worlds? Let's dive into how you can build a really powerful hybrid strategy. You can be really clever about how you mix these techniques. For example, instead of feeding a whole document into the context, why not use a RAG-like approach to retrieve just the key sections first? Or you could keep a high-level summary of a document always in the context window, kind of like a cheat sheet for the AI. The main idea here is to stop the brute force approach. Don't just paste everything in. Be strategic about what the model actually gets to see. So, after all that, how do we make the right choice? Let's boil this all down to one single, really memorable rule you can take with you. And here it is. This is the key takeaway. The rule of thumb is this. Choose long context for a few huge docs. Prefer RAG for breadth. Let the shape of your data guide your decision. Are you going deep on one or two massive things? Long context might be your friend. Are you going wide across many, many different sources? RAG is almost certainly the better choice. Depth versus breadth. It's that simple.
And that leaves us with one final question, something for you to really think about as you design your next app. Is your context strategy a true superpower, making your applications smarter and more efficient? Or has it maybe become a crutch, a brute force approach that's secretly costing you in accuracy and performance? The choice now is yours.